and welcome to the Writing Gals. We are four sweet romance authors, but we're missing Laura today. But it's her son's birthday, so we're not like all mad at her or anything. She's just celebrating a birthday today, so we're without Laura. But
and she made up for us being gone last week, so it's fair.
That's right. She did the whole thing by herself last week, so yay, Laura. We're here to talk about imposter syndrome, but before we jump into that, we're going to talk about what we've been up to. Michelle, what have you been up to?
Let's see, trying to put my life back together after getting back from another conference.
Yeah.
Which was a lot of fun, but it was a long travel back. Like we had a late 9 o'clock flight and then it got delayed and then we stayed a night in Tulsa and then drove back home. And I don't know, I feel like I've been running full speed trying to get my life back together since then. But another episode of my vampire story on Kindle Vella is out. And I sent the first few chapters in my new rom-com to my developmental editor and got lots of positive feedback and some things that I need to work on. And we've decided I'm going to go ahead and do dual point of view, which I'm kind of mad about because it means I'm going to have to not be lazy and figure out how to talk about the business stuff a little bit more, which is always hard because you don't want it to be boring, but it's kind of integral to the plot and his whole conflict and reason why he can't just, immediately have her when he wants her. So,
yeah.
But yeah, so I've got to go back in to the first few chapters and put his point of view in. But, it's great to know that it's a great start. It was funny for her. And
good.
So I know what I'm doing. So that's always positive.
That's awesome. Good going. Anne-Marie, what have you been up to?
Well, I actually wrote down words today. I got 3,000. My goal is 5,000 because I have a book order is due at the end of next month. And I have to get it to my editor. And then I have to get it to my cover artist now because she's going to need time to create my paperback and hardcover. Because normally I do that the night before the book goes live. So I'm having to prep. But I'm having an author dream moment. I had a TikTok go viral on TikTok and it's at 1.3 million views. And I have people just dying for my pre-order. I think I have I got 700 pre-orders from doing not just from that TikTok, but from just doing TikToks about the series book over and over. And so many people commenting, I can't wait to read this. You're making me die. Come on, release it already. And I'm like, this is my fantasy. This is my
great
ultimate ever dream is to have readers just dying for my book. And somebody was like, can't you release it already? And I was like, no, I'm writing it. And she's like, oh, you're just making us want it that much more. So I'm like, yay, this is exciting.
Yay.
So doing that, I'm playing with A+ content as well when I'm not writing or trying to force myself to write. So, but I feel very excited about my author career and where it's going. And it's been a long 6 months basically since I was started on TikTok to where I am now. And then at the beginning of the year where I was all I'm doing is covers and updating back matter and doing all these other things. So it's exciting. It's nice that also I'm writing again. I'm finding fun scenes to put in my books and then making TikToks about them and then people loving them being like, okay, this has got to go in my book. It's easier to do it that way than the other way around where you're trying to remember what you wrote and trying to make it enticing enough. I much prefer doing it this way. So just trying to truck forward, get my words written, get things going, but I'm excited. It's going to be interesting to see this launch and how it goes for me.
Very cool. Very awesome. That sounds so cool. I have been doing just a little bit on TikTok, so I'm excited to dive in more and to play around more and try and emulate you. You're like, I want to be like Anne-Marie.
Well, I will tell you this, for anybody who is doing TikTok, it will take 2 to 3 weeks of posting constantly before you start seeing some bigger views, because I have multiple accounts that I'm now running. And but the nice thing is once you do have those views, then if you step away and come back, they will pick back up faster than they did before.
Nice.
So if you're not seeing tons of views right away, don't let that stop you. I had an account where I was like, I think I broke it or something. Like I get like 200 views and that's it. But I kept posting. And then one day out of the blue, all of a sudden my views started rising. And I was like, this is different. So don't feel like it's all is lost if you don't do it. Like even Michelle posted a TikTok and then like the next day or next 2 days, she's like, I got over 1,000 views. And so it's not always an instant, this is when it's going to happen type of thing. It can take a little bit longer. I think TikTok, and it's a good thing though, because TikTok's trying to find your audience and figure out who's going to like your videos and who to show them to. So like the first couple of videos, you'll get high views because TikTok just throws you out to everybody. And then those people who like it, then they start to aggregate data on who's going to like your videos and all that stuff. So yes, the key is to say, I'm going to post a video once a day for a month. And eventually in that time period, you're going to get one that's going to hit
all right,
a higher
I'll
number.
have to do that on a month where I'm not so busy. So what I've been working on is I have been putting up more episodes of my angel story. So I got another one up this last week, and that went live yesterday, I think. And I also got a contract for a traditionally published book. I'm going to be working on the Writing Romance for Dummies book. I'm going to be updating it. And my name's going to be on the cover, guys. I am so excited about that. I cannot wait for that. And it's going to be so awesome. So
we're excited for you. Congrats again.
Thrilled to death to do this. And that was the first book I picked up when I knew I wanted to write romance. As I picked up the Writing Romance for Dummies and read it. All the advice on romance in there I thought was spot on. But it's an older book now, and there's nothing about self-publishing in that book. And they picked me to update it so that I could talk to you about self-publishing, because that's become such a massive thing, especially for romance. A lot of romance writers now are self-publishing. So I'll be doing that. And I think it's really awesome that a traditionally published book like that, like a how-to book, came to an indie to talk about how to indie publish. I'm like, that is awesome. Look at the progress we've made as indie published authors. That's just so cool. So I'm super excited about that. But let's talk about imposter syndrome. I'm going to put up a little definition of imposter syndrome and what it is. And have you guys ever experienced imposter syndrome or feeling like a phony, like everybody's going to find out you're the fraud? You only got here through dumb luck.
I think you have to face it every day, don't you? It's not like, have I ever? It's like, have I ever not?
Right?
Is a better question. Yeah. And it takes different forms. Like sometimes it's about my actual writing. But for me, it's usually about like my business acumen, whether or not I'm going to be able to make it as a business person. Ha! I'm not the one having internet problems this time.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Anne-Marie.
Hopefully it'll get back on
problems. Here. I hope she can get back on too.
I knocked on wood for her. Okay. So, yeah, because, that's not my strong suit. And I'm always feeling, and I think for me, my imposter syndrome isn't a reflection of what I think readers or customers are going to think about me, but what other authors in the community think about me, especially since we have such a visible, profile as the Writing Gals. I feel like other authors look at me all the time. Well, Michelle used to do good. Michelle used to have, she used to be climbing. What has she been doing? I haven't seen her publish a book for a long time. And so that's kind of where my imposter syndrome lies, is whether or not people, I don't know, think I'm good and whether I think I'm good as like a business person.
Yeah.
So
I know me, I go through it all the time. Every time someone says, will you teach a class on this or that? I'm like, oh, are you really sure you want me to do this? What if you wanted someone like who's better than me to teach that class? So yeah, I think we all go through that. Anne-Marie was telling me some great stuff before we got on here. why don't you take it away, Anne-Marie? What do you think about imposter syndrome?
Sorry, my internet's being weird, which I don't understand because it's not storming but whatever. So I might be popping on and off to kind of like rejigger it. But I think for me, imposter syndrome is just proof that you are growing farther than you're comfortable right now. And sometimes imposter syndrome, like it's a protective measure that you have to keep yourself at a state of equilibrium where you're at right now. And sometimes you have to give into imposter syndrome and bring yourself back down because you're just not prepared to get to that next level. And so, or when you're in that next level and you're just like, can I stay steady here? Like I go through and it's not necessarily just imposter syndrome. It's just like freak out mode. Mm-hmm. And I go and I start to catastrophize, blah, 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 blah,
that one word.
Yes, everything where I'm like, I almost sabotage myself because I'm not quite ready or comfortable in that next step that I've taken. And we talk about like success. I love Michelle saying it's more like a staircase. And I say either, you're at the riser of the next stair or you're just got up to that next stair and you're kind of dangling on the edge and you're not sure if you have enough power or strength to continue forward. And it's almost more comfortable for you to fall backwards. And so I think a lot of times, it's okay to give into it. And then sometimes you have to see it, recognize it for what it is, and work through that negative thought process. Like, is this true? Am I an imposter? Have I not proven myself? And then you have to reframe those thoughts. So it's very much a mindset game that you play with yourself to protect yourself. Like, I don't know, those who've gone to our conference with Lee, she talks about it's a protective measure. She says a lot of times when you get that, you go, thank you, brain, thank you, body, for trying to protect me. But you're going to go over there because you're not right and you're not true and you're holding me back. But if you're prepared to be that, to be able to say that, and if you're not, then just be like, it's okay. I can go back down a step to where I'm more comfortable until I'm ready to move on to the next step. Because
did we lose her? I think you're muted, Michelle.
Until she pops back on again, I'll jump off kind of part of what she said as far as like using imposter syndrome to work for you. She's coming back on. But like I said about my imposter syndrome being focused towards other authors, then, she was saying imposter syndrome can help you if you use it right, if you use it to bring yourself back to where like you're to focus on your direction and what you want to do.
Yes.
And so for me, if I'm too focused on what other authors think about me and I start feeling like I'm an imposter and I don't belong with, other successful authors or in their company or their friendships or community, then it really throws me off my writing game. But that's not even why I got into this. I didn't get into being an author so that I could, just have my community and friendship as an author. I got into it to tell stories and to find my readers. So for me, I had to tell my imposter syndrome, like, shut up, Michelle. You do have the good friends that you need in the community. It's enough. And this is about your readers anyway. So get back to work on your stories.
Yes, exactly. Anne-Marie, you came back.
Sorry, it keeps shutting me down. Like, you can no longer talk. Goodbye. So I don't know. I might just be like jumping off and on because I don't know what's going on with my internet.
No worries.
But yeah, so basically that's what I'm learning. A lot of and when you recognize any of these reactions that you have, whether it's imposter syndrome or feeling like everything is imploding and you can't handle it, Sky Warren said a business cannot outpace its CEO. And I always think when I get to that point, I'm like, okay, I'm reaching a point now where I am not prepared to handle this and I need to work through these feelings. And a lot of times it's not doing the things that you want to do to bring you back down to like a basis that you enjoy. And being like, well, maybe it's not a good time for your business to grow because your family's stressed. And so then it's okay to come back down. But when I'm trying to grow and I have all the ground is prepared and ready for me, then really the thing that's holding me back is these feelings that I have inside of me that are trying to keep me from growing. But it's your mind is such a powerful tool when it comes to stuff like this, that a lot of times your business isn't growing because and not really because readers don't want to read your books, or that other authors think that you're a joke, or you're not legitimate in the author community. It's more you and how you feel, because a lot of times imposter syndrome comes from big successes, right? Where you have like all of a sudden a book that does really well, and then you're like, wait a minute, whoa, this, I'm not ready for this.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of the times the things that you aren't controlling either can help you, make you feel imposter syndrome. Like even the writing gals, like we never thought this group was going to grow as big as it did, never in our wildest dreams. And I still feel imposter syndrome, especially when I go to a conference and people know me and I don't know them. And I'm like, we had someone at Storymakers who was telling another lady, like, you're in the presence of famous people. And I was like, we're not that cool. Don't say that to me. Like, no, we're not. It's not. No. Another lady was like, really? And I'm like, no. So like, it's that still same thing where we've just grown faster than we can handle in this moment. So yes.
Perfect. All right, Michelle, you're muted again.
I'm trying to like not make noises and then I forget. Okay.
Yeah.
So if we bring it back down to new writers, because you can have imposter syndrome at all different levels. And like I think it's great for us to talk about it as successful authors who are doing this as a living, because that has significant and specific challenges. But I remember the days of being a new author, and I talk to new authors all the time that have imposter syndrome. And one of the hardest things is just to call yourself an author or call yourself a writer, to just be able to label yourself with that. Say, I am a writer. That brings on imposter syndrome like nothing else, especially if you say it to other people, because then you feel like, well, you're going to say, well, what are your qualifications?
Right.
Jennifer Nielsen recently gave a keynote at a conference I thought was amazing, where she talked about, even in her career and as much success as she's had, she still has people, like her son at school or a daughter at school, like the teacher, librarian didn't believe that her mom was a writer, or all these different things. Like what actually qualifies you to be a writer? And really, if you're writing something, you're a writer.
Yes.
So like, don't let that voice in your head tell you that you're not a writer or that you're not an author. Just go ahead and own it, because as soon as you own it and embrace it, then you're able to move forward, with the direction, and it's becomes something more of a pursuit or an ambition or a goal than just like this, ephemeral dream that you have. So shut that voice down really quick, the one that says you're not a writer.
Yeah. Or an author. If you're like, oh, I haven't been published, I haven't even finished a book, so I'm not an author. But own it. Say, I am an author. If someone asks, what do you do? I write. I'm an author. And the more you can own that, the more you can be okay with that. I think sometimes people are scared to tell anybody that they're writing a book, and don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Just take it, own it.
And even if you feel like your writing is not good yet because you're just starting out, it's just a sign that you have good taste. It means that you know what good writing is, and you know that you're not quite there yet. But that means that you are going to improve, because it's only people who think that their writing is perfect. And I'm talking about all the way up to 6-figure authors. Yes. If you think that your writing is all that and you don't have any room for improvement, then it means that you're blind to your own flaws.
Yes.
And weaknesses. So true. So seeing them is actually a strength and a benefit.
All right. So I have a couple of tips if you are feeling imposter syndrome and you don't know what to do. Tip number 1, don't read your reviews. Or have somebody who knows you, who can go weed out all the bad ones and just give you all the good ones, because those bad reviews can take you down lots of steps. It takes many good reviews to replace just one bad review that you've read that can be soul crushing. So I would say don't read your reviews. What do you guys think? Any other tips for getting over?
It's tricky. It's a two-handed problem because on the one side, yes, I definitely agree with what you said. And then on the other side, if you only ever read good stuff about you, it might make you have like a big ego problem too. And it can give you this displaced sense of that you can have some people who are your readers and some people who aren't. So a lot of times your reviews are just people finding your book and it's for them or it's not for them, and it's not necessarily based on your quality. But also I've occasionally had issues where a bad review pointed me to like a major mistake I made in my book that I needed to fix. Like using the wrong name of an ocean because I was writing books on 2 different oceans at the same time. So I have always read all of my reviews, but definitely learn not to read bad reviews if I'm not in the place to do it. Like if I'm in a bad place or I'm like struggling with that imposter syndrome, that's not the time to go looking at reviews. And I know my self-restraint. I can't just read the good reviews. If I'm in a bad mood, I kind of want to read the bad reviews to prove to myself that I'm as bad as I feel like I am. So for me, I just avoid reviews completely unless I'm in a stable emotional place. So it's just a nightmare if I'm already dealing with imposter syndrome. But in general, I think it's a good idea to have somebody give you the reviews and just ask them to give you a few that are a little bit like 3-star reviews. You know what I mean? Like not just all the 5-star reviews, mix in some 3-star reviews because you need, a healthy perspective too.
Not a bad idea. Anne-Marie, what do you do?
I think it's also when it comes to reviews, you have to look at the number of books you sold versus the number of reviews you have. And that helps me a lot when I think of, I've got 20 negative reviews, but I've sold 2,000 books. So that meant only 20 people felt that indignant enough to come back and leave a bad review. I think it's important to read some of your bad reviews, like Michelle said, to help you be a better author. But I think we are very much more willing to accept negative criticism of ourselves than we are positive criticism. It's just the kind of time that's what culture we live in. So I think it's important too to instead of read a 5-star review and be like, oh, well, whatever, like sit with the 5-star reviews as long as you sit with the 1-star reviews and or have somebody pull out consistent things that are said within your reviews, positive and negative, so that you can see maybe some place where you could grow and some places where you are obviously hitting the mark with readers. Other thing is that when I read a negative review, I'm just like, apparently I brought ham and mayonnaise and they brought peanut butter and jelly to this picnic. Obviously, we were never going to be a good match as it is, and then you just leave it at that. And sometimes I'm just like, wow, I made you feel something. Like, obviously it wasn't good, but that's my goal, is to make you feel something. So I just went the opposite way with it.
And it's true that maybe your book isn't that fabulous. Like when I look back at my first books, they're clearly a growing book, and 30 plus stories later, I'm a much better author than I was then because I've been making an effort to improve all along. But, at the same time, you also can recognize, I think looking back on your books, you can recognize also that it was better at the same time than you thought it was. I'm going to have my phantom phone going.
Yep, I totally get that. I look back at some of my first books and think, oh boy, I sure hope people realize that was, an emerging author's writing rather than how I write now, just because I've grown so much. If you aren't growing in your writing, then something's probably wrong. So I think everybody can look back at their early works and think, I should have done that better.
Just go on.
Just go on.
I have this phone that just doesn't have like a ring. It just like rings for 5 minutes. I'm like,
that's funny. All right. So, any other thoughts on imposter syndrome? Does anybody have any questions? We've gotten some great comments. I'm going to put Judy's comment up because she said something insightful. She's found that usually finding more success when she's growing. So learning from personal development books, working on her mindset, waking up early to set herself up for success. So I think we can find more success as we are working on ourselves and our mindset and the way that we're doing things. I think my mindset right now has got this little block on TikTok. I need to remove that block and say, I can do this. I can post a TikTok video a day, because my brain is full of, oh, I can't, I got so much to do. But you know what? How often do I sit and watch something on TV and I could have made a TikTok video in the 10 minutes that I was watching that?
Yeah. And I think that it's really cool with imposter syndrome. If you call it what it is, it kind of loses some of its power.
I agree.
So just say, hey, that was imposter syndrome. All right, shut up. Go sit in your corner. I'm not listening to you anymore. But if you don't recognize what it is when it's happening, then it can really take root and become a problem.
Absolutely.
I think it's part of a journey. And I think we see other authors' successes and we think, oh, I want to get to that point, but we don't see all the little stops that they've taken along the way and how how much they've gained in that knowledge by conquering those things that make them feel like an imposter to begin with. And like, well, I can't, write a good kiss scene. And I'm up against all these people that can write good kiss scenes. Well, instead of saying that, they were like, no, I can't. I have the capacity to write good kiss scenes. I may not be writing them right now, but I have the capacity to. And then going out and finding that capacity within yourself and believing enough within yourself that you can do it. And it's like, that's when the actionable steps happen, seeing what the imposter syndrome, whatever it's about, and then following those steps. Like if you say, I'm not an author. Well, write down what an author is to you. What do you think an author is? And then look at that and say, am I doing these things? And if you say I'm not, maybe that's a place where you can start changing that so that you can say, feel comfortable with being an author and saying those words out loud.
Yeah, I think it's our definitions that trip us up so much of the time, right? Like if you think of an author as being somebody who sells 100,000 copies of a book and hits the New York Times list and has a huge line of fans wanting to sign their book everywhere they go. If that's what you think an author is, then very few of us are going to get there. But if you recognize that an author is somebody that is writing a story and finds some readers for it, then it's much more, approachable and doable. And then along the way, you can just set goals for what level you want to go to, right? So it doesn't have to be something that you have to get all the way to the top from the very beginning, because that feels impossible. And that feels like I'm not there and I'm never going to be there. But if you just set these manageable goals and keep it really constantly in front of you all the time, that this is my goal right now, then it can really help you to maintain that perspective and not get caught up in imposter syndrome. Because if you look up from your own paper at what someone else is doing, like Emery was saying, and then you start thinking, well, I'm not doing that. Wait a second. Then you can really start feeling that imposter because they're an author. That must mean that since I'm not doing that I'm not. But that's not how it works at all. There's many, many different ways and many paths and many levels of success and achievement. So figure out what you want and what success means to you and get there. And success might be finishing your first book. It might be publishing your first book. It might be finishing your first series. It might be making your first $100. It might be making $100,000. It just depends on where you're at. But keep in mind what your definition right then of what you're trying to achieve is, and stop comparing it to what other people are doing, because that's what imposter syndrome is based off. If we didn't compare to anybody, none of us would feel like imposters.
That's a really good point. All right. This Facebook user said, I haven't finished anything and I definitely get a block to starting anything now because I don't believe I can finish a book. Would love any thoughts or tips regarding getting started again or getting going again when it feels like a huge mountain you may or may not be able to climb.
Finish it. That sounds like rough, but seriously, even if you're just writing bare bone words, even if you're skipping scenes, even if you're just recognizing you're not writing the same quality, like just plow to the end, because the finishing part is going to set you free.
Yeah. So what I have learned is when I was really nervous about never being able to finish a full book, I said, all right, I'm going to write a short story. So I wrote the beginning, middle, and end of a short story, and I got done, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, I can finish something." And then I wrote a novella, beginning, middle, and end. And it's scary when you're looking at, I've only written 1,000 words, and I have to do this many more, thousands of words. But if you just set a goal, okay, today I'm going to write 500 words, and that's it. And then you reach that goal, and you could check that box. And tomorrow I'm going to write 500 more words. If you keep doing that, you eventually will finish that book.
Yeah. And like if you are not finishing because you're afraid that you're not going to do your story justice, because so many times we have this idea of how amazing our story is in our head, and we feel like we're not going to do it justice on paper, then all of a sudden you just need to recognize that's what editing is for.
Yeah.
So many people put this huge burden on themselves to write the story exactly the way they pictured in their minds in their first draft, and that's not how it goes. And most of the time, the way it's edited and finished, the final product is nothing like what was in your head. And that's just a lesson you learn, with time. And so that's why I say finish it however you can, and try not to figure out like the end product right now, and learn to embrace editing.
I agree.
I think also when you're stuck like this, you may have written yourself into the wrong area. I also was writing my first novel that I published, and I couldn't figure out how to get them through the entire week without doing stuff every single day. And I just fast forward to the scene that I knew was going to come next. And then through writing that scene, I figured out what I needed to say and do to get me through those parts that I was stuck on. So I would maybe just go down to outlining scenes for the rest of the book. And then you can see, because we all have books that we're like, I can't wait to write this scene, or I can't wait to have the characters do this plot, write all that down and kind of piece it back together so you have a direction that you're going. Or you might be able to say, oh, well, I killed off, her mom, but I need her mom to be alive for the last scene of the book. So obviously I can't do that. So sometimes I feel like writer's block with a specific story is more because I have done something that I know instinctively I shouldn't, but I'm forcing to make work. I mean, I wrote like 7 chapter ones for the book I'm writing right now. And I was like, and I kept ignoring it and putting it aside because I was just not sure where I was going to go with the book. And it was really holding me back in wanting to even write it or finish it. And so I finally had to get over myself and be like, just write the book that you wanted to write from the start. You've convinced yourself of that's a horrible direction you're going, blah, blah, blah. Forget all that and just focus on what you wanted to do in the beginning. And that really helped me kind of come around. But I was going to have her go to a funeral first. And then I was like, I can't do that because she's going to be in mourning and I can't really have a relationship going on after that. So it was very much my instincts trying to tell me this is not the right direction to go as. So definitely like I say, when you sit with the reviews, sit and try to figure out what is stopping you from finishing. And it could be plot. It could be just confidence in yourself to finish something. It could be you wrote yourself, you're not in the right direction. Maybe you're not in the right genre. I don't know. It could be a lot of reasons why you feel like you can't finish, and try to figure those out and then move forward from there.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So I'm going to show Julie's comment. I don't know all of it showed up, but Julie said that it was really empowering to answer the question, what do you do for a living, with I am a full-time author. If you acknowledge that and you are able to say that out loud, it does feel very empowering to say that. So thank you, Julie, for that comment. All right. I don't have anything else unless you guys have anything more to say. I think we can be done a little early today. What do you think?
Well, Tori was the one who asked that question about not finishing, and then she responded with this. And I think this is really important. Maybe we should tap in it about the rules of writing market, and not wanting to do anything wrong.
Yeah.
This question right here. Well, not question, more of a statement, but I think this kind of falls in the imposter syndrome area.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can totally freeze you up, right? Especially if you're fairly new and you learn all these rules and you're trying to implement every single one of them into your writing. That did freeze me up for a while. I had to start looking at the rules, not like rules, but like tools in my toolbox. And you use those tools at certain points in your book. And don't try to follow every single rule as you write, because that can confine you too much.
Yeah, you just have to go ahead, Amy.
Well, I was going to say that not wanting to do anything wrong is really what froze me up. And this is my 58th book.
Yes.
This one I'm writing right now. And I want it to be so good. Like, I want it to be my best ever book. And that was actually terrifying me from actually writing anything, because I felt like everything I was writing was crap. So it doesn't go away. But like, I've been able to manage it and be like, it can be what I want it to be. And it can be a really, really good book. But is it probably going to be my opus, my book? No, because I don't want it to be, because then I will, like, a lot of, you see big name authors who go on to write very little ever again, because everybody, like Twilight, it fulfilled all of our needs. We don't need anything else from her. And so it's almost debilitating into trying to find other stories to tell. So, but I will tell you, I know exactly how you feel. And sometimes you just have to let that pressure, because it's really you putting that pressure on you. It's not somebody else. And so just letting it be what it's going to be as it comes out, and then moving on to the next one.
I've had a lot of conversations with my editor because she works with a lot of clients in all different levels of writing. And so, especially when she's working with a new client, she says she looks at their manuscript and she can see that they need to improve in, however many ways in their writing. But she says, if I try and get them to improve in all of those things all at once, then they'll be overwhelmed and they'll feel like quitting. But I can see the potential there. So then my job as an editor with a new client is to say, okay, what should we work on improving first? And she'll pick one or two things and she'll work on them with those skills for, a manuscript or two. And then she'll be like, great, they've got that mastered. Now we can move on to working on these other things. And so, she's gotten to where she's moving more and more into coaching. She wants to take on more coaching clients because she really enjoys that process of helping authors to move step by step through improving their craft. She's Ariel Bailey, by the way, if any of you are interested in that. But we should all look at our careers in that way. Don't try and think you have to fix everything at once or make everything perfect at once. Just, what's most important to me right now, or what do I want to improve right now? And don't worry about being perfect all at once, because you're not ever going to be perfect. And so if you set that standard for yourself, you're just always going to be feeling like you're a failure, and you shouldn't. You're doing something nobody else can do. Like, you're writing your books and your stories, and so many people can't even write one story. So embrace your awesomeness.
Absolutely. One other thing I did think of, if you're having trouble finishing, if you're writing on the same thing over and over again, and you're just revising and reworking the same book over and over again, it may be time to set that aside and start something new, because we start out in this place over here, and then we learn and we grow, but the work that we're working on sometimes is still stuck back here. John Truby calls it mental cement. So what you started out writing is cemented in your mind, and you can't grow from that sometimes. So sometimes you need to set it aside and say, okay, I'm going to work on something else, because I actually have grown as a writer. And so I need to start from the beginning again and create that story structure that actually works better than my very first idea.
Yeah. I call it breaking up with your book. Break up with your book. And also, especially if you're a new author, please listen and hear me. Even if you write fantasy or sci-fi, don't start off with your first project being book 1 in a 9-book trilogy, a 9-book series. That would be funny, a 9-book trilogy. No, but like, don't have it set in your mind that you're writing book 1 of this huge long series, because for one thing, the harder that first book is, the more difficult it's going to be for you to dive into book 2. But also, you don't want the first book in your series to be like newbie author self, right? So I would always recommend that people who are serious about building a career and writing long series should start with a standalone book, should start with short stories, should start with things that are going to develop their skills most quickly. The more you write, the faster those will develop. So writing a lot of novellas that are different from each other and allow you to experience different character types, character plots, story arcs, all those dynamics is going to improve your writing so much faster. So save that magnificent idea you have for a series until you've put some time improving your craft.
Absolutely.
First.
And I would say also a key indicator that you might be a little lost in your stories if you've stopped daydreaming about it. I know a lot of my prep work before I sit down and write is based when I daydream. And I was feeling very crippled by my pressure I was putting on myself to make it a good book, that I wasn't daydreaming about it. So I would suggest too, also, especially if you're struggling finishing, sit down and write 5 different scenarios or 5 different scenes that you would be super excited to write about. And it doesn't necessarily even have to, like, it should sort of do with your book, but start that daydreaming process again. That's so and I don't know if other authors, but it's so pivotal for me to end my writing session and then daydream about it as I'm driving in the car, I'm taking a shower, or brushing my teeth, doing the dishes, and I'm thinking about what I'm going to write next, where I'm going to take the characters next. And if you're not doing that, then you're stuck somewhere. So then start just putting your characters in situations. If you're like, I love writing dancing in the kitchen scenes, or I love when they do have a flower fight and then it ends in a kiss, like, think about all the scenes you love, write them down. That might help spark something, or it might help guide you into the next direction that you need to go in, to be like, okay, I want this to be in there. I could totally see these 2 characters doing that. Okay, now I have a direction I need to go in. A lot of times it's just more that murky middle stuff that we're still trying to figure out. But if you're writing a romance, or you could, like, as a fight scene or somebody dies, you're like, whoa, I could throw this twist to my readers and they won't even see it. You know, that's where that excitement comes back. And then you'll find a way to keep moving forward and pushing forward, because you're wanting to get to that next scene with the like, what is it, scene and sequel. So you have to do the sequel stuff to prep you for the next scene. But if you're not daydreaming, there's probably a story excitement you're struggling with, and that's when I would say just sit down and let the stories come.
Good advice. Absolutely. All right. Any other last words till we say goodbye? Nope. All right.
Nope.
Join us in our Facebook group. If you're not a member of our Facebook group, we are the Writing Gals on Facebook. And subscribe if you haven't subscribed to our channel here, and you'll get notified when we have new videos up. We will see you next week, right?
Yes. Are we going to talk about, if we talked about imposter syndrome today, what was it? Writer's block? Were we going to talk about writer's block?
Let's talk about writer's block. Sure.
Seems like we were kind of leading into that at the end of this conversation anyway.
It leads right into writer's block. So we'll discuss writer's block, how to get around that next week. And thank you all for joining us.
Bye.